Yo, we just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's hit the shore fine. Winter ready on the four ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on your own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy George Mackay here. Straight Talk Wrestling, pre-recorded. We're in a very fantastic green room, and I'm sitting down with the director extraordinaire, Luc Paron, of the amazing short film Arachnid, which stars a couple of names you guys may know. TNA's own Killer Kelly and Matt Rinwald. I believe he is in the movie, but he's off screen, right? He's more of a voice within the film.
Yes, he did. He did have a much more major role in the film, but it was cut down in the edit, which was something I kind of had to wrangle with. But yes, he is an off-screen voice in the final cut of the film.
Wow, so you left him on the proverbial cutting room floor.
Yes, this is I did, unfortunately. And it's funny because I was so nervous to... I showed the film to a friend I really respect, who's a really talented editor who had actually worked for TNA prior, and he edits Dark Side of the Ring now and all that stuff. And I showed him the film, and he said, this scene here, you have two characters saying the same thing twice. It was essentially one guy says a monologue, the other guy responds with a kind of response monologue, and Ray Walt was that response. And he said, you're just kind of saying the same thing twice with two different characters.
You were echoing the same sentiment.
Yes. So I thought, yeah, but like Ray Walt is one of our biggest names in the film, and I love the way he performs this. And he said, just try it. Take out that scene and just see how the flow works. And I thought, I don't think it's going to work. And I took it out, and the film was, the pacing was so much better, and it shaved 4 minutes off the runtime. So yeah.
So it went from 14-minute runtime to, it was original cut, first cut was 18 plus.
Yeah. 18 minutes, and then now it's 14 minutes, 45 seconds.
Perfect. So I actually had a chance to see the film. Promptly called my therapist after for a quick little, getting through that.
That's what I love to hear.
Yeah, I know. I figured you would. So it's actually, so being in the film school background, a lot of my listeners and my followers may not know this. I have a $20,000 film school education, and I run a local podcast here in Canada. So that's how far the film school went. But being able to see other filmmakers and what they're doing is quite inspiring. And I enjoyed the film, more so the pacing and the subtle nuances of juxtaposition. Now, what I mean by that is that I noticed that the main actor, again, not spoiling, in his own mind was very subtly insecure about women. But when he had an opportunity to actually interact with women in the real world, as we see in the early minutes of the film, he can't do it. Tells the only proverbial real female in the entire film to fuck off when she is, now mind you, she's a street hooker, but still, regardless, this is what he tells her. And was that something that you subtly chose to do, is to show that the psyche is where he flourished more as more as a person, as opposed to when he was out in the real world?
Yeah, so there's a scene in this film early on where, like you said, there's this interaction between this young man and a sex worker on the street late at night. And how that scene kind of arrived in the film is, this is, if you look at the description of the film, it says, after witnessing an entrancing dance performance, the psyche of a young man falls apart through a series of strange encounters. And when I kind of conceptualize this character, a lot of people watch it and they say, he's like an incel or something like that. And I've always thought he was kind of incel adjacent. Like, he doesn't hate women. He doesn't think the world is out to get him. And he's not quite as jaded as this incel community of, no woman wants to have sex with me, therefore they're all evil bitches, right? Like, that's like the mindset of this incel community. This character, I wanted to show a man who was dangerously close to falling into that worldview because of his own kind of already warped perception of his interaction with women. So the point of this scene in the film is we want to illustrate that it's hard to kind of say, because I want to let it breathe a bit when you see it, but essentially in that scene, the goal there is to showcase how he does have an almost developing resentment, and because he speaks to this woman very rudely, very crudely, and with quite an aggression, or not an aggression to him, but when I wrote the script, I envisioned him saying it a lot more hard and a lot more kind of, you think, is he going to go off with this woman and have this, one night stand or something? But he snaps and he says something else. But when David, the actor who played this role, performed it, he did it kind of in a very unique, disappointed way that kind of surprised me. And I really liked that. But when you see this scene in the film, I wanted to illustrate here is a woman who is offering herself up in exchange for money. And how is this man who is already kind of has a perverse view of women in his head, how is he going to react when confronted with this reality? Because that's the most straightforward confrontation of...
That actually is the only confrontation within the film, because every other confrontation that you do see is him within himself. So that is the only confrontation where he's interacting with someone else in his world, not himself.
You could argue that. I do. The thing is, I know all the intricacies and secrets.
Of course, you're the director. I'm just telling it from strictly a person who's viewed the film.
Yeah. But that is one of the few scenes where it's head on. And the other scene that is the direct parallel of that, there's a scene where he goes on a date with a woman who's just simply a nice girl trying to be nice. So we see how does he react to that. One side is sexual, like the full-on far end of the sexual spectrum. She's a sex worker offering him sex. The other side of that spectrum is the nice girl next door who's cute, innocent, sweet girl. And what can he gain from both of these conversations? How does he approach both these people? And we see him kind of snap in different ways. And so that is the crux of this film, is exploring this guy's mental state through interaction with the women around him.
I like that. That's interesting. I actually want to talk about the cinematography, because that was one of the things that I really enjoyed. The stylization of the film. It's fantastic. And I also love the scene that you're referencing where he goes on the date. Behind her is very well lit, very beautiful, sunny. And then behind him, as the date or the interaction goes, you can slowly start to see behind him getting darker and darker and darker. And it's very subtle, but it's ingenious. What was the thought process on the stylization of the film, especially that particular sequence?
That's a great catch as well. And that was actually done in post, because I color graded this film myself. So I learned DaVinci Resolve for this, and I learned kind of masking tools, isolating the subject from the background, and you can color grade them differently without one affecting the other. But the shot when he's on the date with Holly, in the credits, she's just called Date. We never learn her name, but she's played by a brilliant actress named Holly, who essentially plays herself in the film. That scene is almost fully improvised as well between them two. With that, we had Michael Chow, genius cinematographer who shot this film. He had a artificial sun, giant bright lamp beaming in from the sidewalk in Oshawa, just down the street, actually. We shot that in Vintage 905 clothing store in Whitby. And they let us gut the whole place before they opened for work. And we had from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. to shoot that. And then we had to pack up, and we were loading out while customers were coming in. It was quite funny. But so with that scene, we wanted Holly to just look like the dream of innocence and just like the personification of like just a sweet girl, right? And with the young man, with him behind him, the background, there's people moving to and fro. There's no windows, there's no nothing. It's just this wooden box that he's in. And with Holly, when he looks at her, this sun is coming in. So it's almost fairy tale-esque. And then later in the film, when we cut back to seeing her in that other context, in that slow motion shot, that is like, we took the cover of the book Les Mis with Cosette's hair blowing in the wind. We wanted to recreate that exact shot.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to be like that. I was like, very Les Mis of you.
That's
so
exactly
another great catch, guys, by me. I caught it perfectly.
Yeah, so we wanted to emphasize that. And just if I can speak to Holly for a second here. Holly is, when in the first draft of the script, she was the only character who had a name, because she was essentially playing herself. And I wrote that role with her in mind. And there was a brief period where she couldn't do it, and I had to audition other people for it. And they were great actors, and they were just wonderful women who nailed it. But it just didn't work, because I was trying to see someone and describe to them how to do an impression of Holly. And eventually we just moved the date so that Holly could do it. And that scene was improvised too, because I kind of just wrote the blurbs, like one line response to each of them. But I just said, guys, you're on a date. He's going to tell you about his life. You're going to tell him about his, and he's kind of disinterested. And he kind of is not really locked into this date, and just play that out naturally. So it's one long take, and you can hear me on the uncut film saying like, okay, guys, now Holly, you're gonna start getting weird vibes from him. And now David, you're gonna start kind of, your eyes are wandering, you're not really listening as she's talking, and you can hear me directing it. So that was really fun, and they just nailed that. So yeah. And going back to the cinematography here. So with that, yeah. That was, we just knew too, we wanted to box them in and have them broken from each other. Because if you watch most films of two people talking, it's over the shoulder. You can see them both at the same time. You can see, you know, if me and you, the camera would be here, you're here, my shoulder's here, showing we're in the space together. With Arachnid, what we did, we wanted a hard barrier where, and they also, the actors are looking into the lens as they're speaking. So the camera is the person, and I don't want to spoil the fun of the shot, but they're just one in one, dead on, looking at each other. But then we bring in some dynamics when that camera starts to move. And that was a very unique and hard shot to pull off, because we had to focus pull while moving, while zooming. And yeah, so the whole team nailed that.
They did. It was actually when they did, I was like, oh, the moving focus pull. These guys really pulled out all the stops. I do want to talk about, again, I don't want to spoil anything in the film. It is great if you get a chance, and I know you have some dates that you want to plug. So we're going to get into that. But I do want to talk about Killer Kelly. Yeah. I know for a fact that, I mean, she's mentioned in a few interviews before this film came to light how she wanted to be in a horror film. And I have to ask this because I wanted to know this question. When you wrote this, did you write this with her specifically in mind? Or was this just something that organically happened? Or was she always the thought process for Arachnid?
So that's a great question, because there's a lot of history here. The film was written in, actually 2018 was my first pass at it, when I didn't watch wrestling. I wasn't involved in wrestling in any capacity at all. And I had just kept having visions of this, you know, grotesque Spider-Woman thing. And I thought, how can I work that into a narrative? And then I came up with the concept of, you know, this guy who's struggling and trying to make it all work in his brain. But with that, I tried to make it work based around this concept of how can we get to this spider scene, right? Mm-hmm. And with short films, it's very often the case. We have a great idea for one concept, and we have to build a narrative around that to lead us to that. And so with that, I wrote it, and I offered the role at first to a friend of mine, Grace, who is this incredibly talented dancer, very athletic girl, very beautiful, very talented, very charming. And Grace has shoulder length, kind of really lovely blonde hair, and very charming look. And she's just a great woman. And then, but I knew the film was going to cost a lot of money, and I was really young at this point. And then COVID happened, and it all got away from me, and I shelved it and never really thought about it again. Then I started working at TNA in 2023. Me and Killer Kelly developed this friendship. We're doing photo shoots together every time we see each other. We build this great rapport of working with each other. And, you know, I just love working with her so much. And eventually I was sitting at home one day, and she'd done this photo shoot just covered in blood. And I just messaged her and I said, someone's got to put you in a horror movie. And she said, I know, someone should. And at that exact moment, I thought, oh, wait a second. I got that old script. Maybe I'll dig that up. And I've never gone to film school. I have no formal training. Like, out of high school, I just bought...
Trust me, it's overrated.
Yeah, right? So at the end of the day, it's as simple as just making the movie and Googling YouTube videos on how to do it, right? That's how I learned how to make Arachnid, was watching YouTube videos. But
could have saved me 20 grand if I had known that.
Yeah. So I just reached out to my brother and my cousin, who both are in film school. And I said, all right, guys, do you think we could do this? And they said, yes. Oh my God. And we had a lot of concepts. Once we knew Killer Kelly was going to be our girl, we thought of a lot of different original movie idea concepts. And there's one I really want to come back to, actually, that Kelly's never even heard about. We had this concept, because me, my brother, my cousin, we looked at pictures of Killer Kelly, and we thought, what kind of stories come to mind here? But it was actually Killer Kelly out of character. We thought a YouTubing woman who runs like a family channel, like a mom channel, who develops a following, but as her kids grow up, she starts to really panic about how is she gonna run this YouTube channel, and it gets really crazy with her like abducting children and trying to make these like YouTube videos about like how to be a good mother, but she starts to go crazy, right? Because we looked at Killer Kelly out of character, and we thought she just has this aura to her that would be a great like YouTuber personality.
Yeah, aura of being a complete and utter psychopath.
So, well, she would take it as a compliment.
I know she would. I absolutely, seeing her face in the final scene of this film, I absolutely know she would.
So eventually I thought, I've got that script about the fucking spider thing. And I reached out to some other guys and said, could I do this on a budget of X amount of dollars? And they all said, there's no way you could do this for that amount of money, because you saw the end of that movie. It's crazy what happens there. But then my brother said, reach out to my friend Jake Gunhouse. I bet he could do this for under $500, this effect you're going for. Because people are telling me it would be like $5,000 to do that effect alone. I reached out to this guy, Jake Gunhouse, and also my brother's girlfriend, Joe Mayhew. And they said, we can come up with something for under $1,000. 4 hours later, they send me a working miniature puppet rig, fully articulated, exactly what I want. And they said, we can scale this up for about $1,000. They came in $400 under budget, and they just kept the rest. When you guys see this movie, that ending spider rig, $500. That's what that cost. It was absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's what they did. And so then I reached out to Kelly. I said, we got this script, and I couldn't find the original script at the time either. And I had to rewrite it from memory. And thank God I did, because that original script I eventually did find. It is guilty of a lot of the things that the themes are critiquing now. It's guilty of playing too much into the sexual aspect of it and the over-sexualization of the female characters, because that was very much like a young man's script there. That was like, I wrote that at 18, and it was all these crazy cool images, and it was crazy and it was cool, but like it played into the stuff that I was kind of critiquing in the final themes of the current state. So that's how we arrived at that. So Killer Kelly was not always the woman in mind for this, but once I knew that I wanted to work with Killer Kelly in a horror film, I reworked the script. And there's a moment where she does kind of the Killer Kelly crawl that she does in Ring. She does that in the film. We worked in little things like that. So
yeah, there was very much nuances. And again, when you see the end scale of this film, the last 20 seconds, you get left with a whole lot more questions than answers, which could be a broad spectrum into a plethora of a feature. But I enjoyed it thoroughly, and especially the ending, did not expect that at all. And then when it happened, I was pleasantly surprised, being a horror fan myself. So guys, if you get the chance, this film is incredible. It's worth the trip down to the theater to watch it. And I now know you have some show dates you want to plug. So what do you got coming up for this?
Yeah, we've got for our Torontonians, which I assume is most of your viewership. It is.
Are you trying to say that I'm not worldwide, sir?
You are worldwide.
I have viewers all over the place. No, God, no, I'm nowhere near a hero. But yeah, most of the fan base is definitely local. So go ahead.
Yeah, March 1st at the Pendance Film Festival in Toronto. That's at the Carlton Theatre. March 1st, I believe. Yeah, March 1st. And we will have ticket info we can throw up or put in the link or whatever. And that's March 1st in Toronto. And then for the international audience, our next screening date is in California on March 15th in California, Silicon Valley, San Jose. That is at a beautiful venue, this big opera house style theater. And then we've also got the Oklahoma Underground Film Festival. That is also on March 1st. And at the California screenings and the Toronto screenings, cast and crew members will be there, including myself. So those are our 3 upcoming dates. Oklahoma, California, Toronto, March 1st, March 16th.
So there you go, guys. I will absolutely be releasing this well before March 1st, so it gives you guys a chance, whether you're local or somehow if I have a huge following and fan base in Oklahoma, you can definitely catch that out. Regardless, director extraordinaire himself, Luke Paron, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate that. And guys, check out the film. Killer Kelly is phenomenal in it. The rest of the cast is phenomenal in it. And if you're an indie wrestling fan from here in Ontario, in the end, you'll see a couple cool cameos for some local indie talent all around here. So be sure to check that out. Peace, love, and wrestling. See you guys next time.
Yo. We just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's hit the shore fine. Winter ready on the full ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on the own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side.